Hello, good morning and welcome to day 2 of the NHS Project Futures Festival 21. For those of you joining for the first time, I'm Jo Stanford. I'm Head of the Corporate Portfolio Office for Health Education England and Head of Project Profession. And your host for this festival, and thank you for joining us for the opening session of day 2. Just before I hand you over to Fiona Spencer, our opening speaker this morning, may I just let you know a little bit about the format of the festival for anybody who is new in today and didn't join us yesterday. So very quickly, you'll see on the right of the screen a panel including a chat, Q&A and notes. The chat is perhaps obvious, but you can make comments and respond to what others have said. Do say hello, do kind of add your thoughts and comments, check with each other and answer other people's questions. It's really important that people network and get to know each other during this time out together. The Q&A is for you to put questions forward to Fiona as you think of them. Once they've been published, you can see other people's questions and like them. The questions with the most likes will rise to the top of the list, and we will go through them in that order at the Q&A towards the end of Fiona's session. We'll cover as many of the questions as we can, but we have a packed agenda again today, and so we will have to stick to time. Any questions that we don't get through, we will get answers and send them out through the platform. So, as yesterday proved extremely popular, there is a game code that's given very briefly at the beginning and end of each session. If you arrive on time, if you write it down in the notes part of your screen, at the end of the session, if you go into the festival game function, you can enter your code and add your points to your total. There is ferocious competition going on that already. If you're new into it, there's a bit of catching up to do to get to the top of the leaderboard. So one at the beginning, one at the end. If you have any difficulties at any time, you can check the information tab in the platform, and there is a quick guide. And also on the left-hand side at the bottom of the list of in the sidebar, there is a help desk, and a moderator will be there to deal with any questions that you may have. So you can give them a call or send them a text. So now, without further ado, I am delighted to introduce you to Fiona Spencer. Fiona is the Director of Functions, Profession and Standards at the Infrastructure and Projects Authority. And she's here to give you her insights into the key challenges and opportunities faced by the IPA and the project profession at this time. So thank you very much, Fiona, for joining us. If I can hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Jo. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining this session. It's a real privilege to be able to talk to you during what I know is an incredibly busy time for everybody, but really looking forward to both sharing a bit about what we're doing in the project delivery profession in government, what opportunities that may hold for you, and also then having some time to discuss that with some questions and answers at the end. But we're going to kick off first of all with a short video. So Chris, over to you. Thanks, Chris. So, well, I apologise if that was a bit of a rude awakening, but it just shows you the sheer breadth and depth and challenge and fascination of project delivery in government at the moment. And, you know, it's always a bit of a challenge to follow that, but we wanted to show you just some of the things that are going on at the moment and some of the things that we're going to be thinking about in the next few years. So I'm going to start really by talking about the future direction for project delivery as a profession in government and the wider public sector. And then I'm also going to talk about the opportunities and what that might mean for somebody like you who wants to build skills in project sector project delivery, because there's a lot going on. But before I do, I should just say a little bit about me and a little bit about the Infrastructure and Projects Authority. So the Infrastructure and Projects Authority is the government centre of expertise for infrastructure and major projects. We sort of do what it says on the tin. And we are about 200 people. We have experts in all aspects of project delivery, from infrastructure and IT to defence to transformation, project finance, and in there sits my project profession team. And we work with people across government, initially in the civil service, but I think increasingly right across the public sector and industry and the professional bodies, in order to build professional project delivery capability in the UK. And we lead formally the government project delivery profession, and I, within that, am the head of the government project delivery profession. 14,000 people in terms of the kind of civil service and arm's length bodies we track through statistics, but very much a growing area and thriving at the moment. Our purpose in the Infrastructure and Projects Authority is to drive continuous improvement in the way government delivers infrastructure and major projects. And we have a very high ambition. We aspire for nothing less than world-class delivery, and we are determined to get there. And we've just recently had a new mandate published for the Infrastructure and Projects Authority, which sets out what we do and what our kind of tasks are, what our authorities are, what our responsibilities are, and that's available on the website, as are all of the documents that I'll be referencing today, if you want to have a little look. So moving on then, what is the future direction for project delivery as a profession, both in government and the wider public sector, because it is growing. And I think the first thing I really wanted to say, and you will know this, but project delivery has never, ever been more important to the future of the UK. And whether that's been the response to Brexit, the response over the last year to COVID, the amazing work that has been done in the NHS in terms of kind of responding to the challenges of COVID, the vaccine deployment is a fantastic example of project delivery done brilliantly. But equally, right across the UK, even through COVID, you know, the furlough scheme that was stood up with HMRC in 3 or 4 weeks, fantastic example of project delivery done well. A whole range of other things. Construction, we've managed to make sure that a lot of construction has continued. Those projects are doing really, really well, some of them. All of these things are really key. And because this is not just about the response, because we all know the last 12 months have been incredibly challenging and will have been very challenging for you, I'm sure. Equally, we are now starting to look to the future. And one of the key things that will be really important in the UK's future, post-Brexit, post-COVID, is very much how we remobilise, how we boost the economy, how we build towards the UK of the future, and things like net zero and a thriving, prosperous economy with the UK's place in the world. So project delivery is how we deliver this stuff, and it's never been more important. And the good thing is, I think that is recognised. So the government has published in the autumn something, quite frankly, we've been trying to get off the blocks for about 3 years in the IPA, but a new national infrastructure strategy, the first national infrastructure strategy, which sets out how we're going to be driving recovery and rebuilding the economy, levelling up and strengthening the union, decarbonising the economy, and accelerating improving delivery. And within that is what is known in the IPA as the delivery chapter, which I was heavily involved in. And it talks a lot about accelerating investment and building capability in major projects leadership, major projects expertise, and project delivery skills, not just in government, but across the country. And a whole range of other publications associated with that. The National Infrastructure Strategy is not a bad read, definitely worth a look. If you're interested in the capability, look at the last chapter. But equally, we then published the construction playbook, which talks about how this is going to feed into the revolutionising how we do construction. It links to the NHS infrastructure plan and a whole range of other things besides. So very much about setting the direction for how government is planning to take forward investment in major projects and infrastructure in future. Equally, I think for the IPA, alongside the plans in there, we are very clear that underpinning all of that, whether they're major projects in infrastructure, in transformation, in IT, whatever it is, there are 3 fundamentals. People. You don't deliver projects without people. People deliver projects. So you need to make sure you have the tools and capability needed. Principles. You know, there are fundamental principles around project delivery if it's be successful, and understanding and sharing those principles is really, really key, and that's one of the things we're really focusing on. And then performance, understanding how you're doing, understanding how to deliver, understanding what matters in terms of time and cost and outcome, but also in terms of benefits and outcomes. And all of those things, that really in a nutshell summarises what the IPA is focusing on right now. And I'm going to talk a bit more about each one of those. So first of all, people, always first of all, people, building professional capability. We have plans to invest. We are going to be doing a lot around new capability. And the government project delivery profession is going to be at the heart of that. And we want to work with government departments, with all of you in the NHS, with the other arm's length bodies and organisations across the public sector. And indeed, we're starting to work also with local government to really start to help build and open up some of those pathways to skills. And I'll say a bit more about how we're doing that in a bit. Principles. We know that there are certain standards and certain best practice principles for modern project delivery. And I say the word modern very deliberately there. This is a growing area of expertise, and we have learnt a lot over the many years now since project delivery was first thought of, and we are continuing to learn. There are some fundamental principles, and we did a huge crowdsourcing exercise last year and published the essence of that in what are known as the Principles for Project Success, which are again available on the website, and I'll set out very briefly there. But alongside that, we are continuing to build on the principles, the functional standard for project delivery that we have in place across government and other things, to develop guidance and tools for use across the public sector and beyond. And we're sharing that also with the professional bodies and indeed with the private sector. So a lot of work going on to improve that. And then performance. So you'll have heard better, faster, greener. Very much one of the Prime Minister's sort of catchphrases, but we really need to innovate and modernise delivery practices as well. Particularly, and we did some work on this in the autumn, we need to improve understanding of modern delivery methods, modern methods of construction, off-site construction, digital technologies, and how you use those to deliver projects. And things like, BIM and modern practices around using data, 5D CAD, all sorts of things like that, where you can really change the way you think about delivery and sustainability, building net zero into the framework of everything we do in project delivery for the future. So that's a really interesting piece, because we don't know all of those things yet, but we need to work together across government to identify what works and to share that learning. And that's going to be a real focus for the IPA over the next few years. But what does that mean for you? If we want to build skills in the public sector delivery, then people need to kind of, have the opportunities to do so, need to want to do so. So some of the things we're doing right now, and I'm very happy to talk more about these in the questions. But the first thing we are wanting to do, we have a foundation around project delivery capability. We have a government project delivery capability framework, and I know there's an NHS one geared to the NHS coming out. But we are also looking at that and thinking about how can we strengthen the career pathways and put more structure and support around them. Because we've never really done that quite in the right way in government. So we are now really focusing on a much more structured approach to career pathways and project delivery in government, with really a much clearer focus on a framework for development, assessment and accreditation. So it all hangs together much more clearly with 4 key levels. So foundation level, that will be your apprentices, your grads, people coming in, people on the first rung of their project delivery professional journey, through to practitioner, which many, many people will be at, and they will be your kind of practitioner. This will be the bedrock of the profession. And then starting to move into the project leadership roles, senior practitioner, and then onto the kind of the top end with master practitioner. And we will tie these in to our learning across government and qualifications, and we are going to be bringing in a new approach to accreditation for government project professionals. And we are also tying that into the APM as the UK's chartered body for the profession. So it will link into different levels and it will link into their qualifications. So that is going to be a really big thing coming over the next year, and we will be saying more about that at the Project Delivery Conference that we'll be having in March. Alongside, that will be part of something that will be called the new Government Projects Academy. So this will be, it won't be a building, it's certainly not going to be a building at the moment. It will be a virtual academy and an entity, a single virtual hub for professional standards, accreditation and training for project professionals across government. And that will have, that will oversee professional standards and the new accreditation framework, and then the curriculum, and then it will manage the delivery, if you like, whether directly or mostly through others, of our project leadership and project development programs. And as part of that, we will be redesigning our learning curriculum so that it all links together. And this will mean that we have a much clearer way of identifying and accrediting and then developing and deploying people into the right roles across government. It will also be, should be a really attractive offer for people who want to make a career in project delivery, and help us make sure that we are really helping build and then use the talents of everybody who wants a career in this area. So that's a really exciting development coming up again over the next year. And as part of that, we're widening access to our major project leadership programs. And we have the project leadership program at Cranfield, and I know a number of you will have been on that because that's currently open to NHS folk. And that has just been retendered, will be relaunched later in the spring. And we're really excited about this because this will be, if you like, the first, offering off the block under the Government Projects Academy. And we're really working with Cranfield to make sure that it reflects all of the things I was talking about in terms of modern project delivery, net zero, modern methods, all of those things, so that it is a really great showcase for the way we want to move forward in government on project delivery. We're doing some work on introducing an introductory programme for new SROs. That's in development. And then a bit further down the track next year, we will also be retendering and then relaunching the Major Projects Leadership Academy and the DG level sponsorship programme, orchestrating major projects across government. And just for the avoidance of doubt, these programmes are already open to people leading projects in the NHS, and I know from my time working with people on the MPLA and PLP that many of you have attended or may aspire to attend. But as one of the challenges we've had has been capacity, and we are increasing capacity, and we are also looking to open up the programmes more generally to a wider set of people, including across local government. So again, you'll hear more about that coming up. Building professional learning networks. One of the great things about all of this is all about sharing and learning together. And we strongly believe in that in the IPA, and we want to make that, it's always been part of the project profession in government, and we really want to kind of make sure that is so. And events like this are a really good example of exactly doing that. But equally, we want to join up more in terms of the wider piece, because project delivery has been slightly apart from some of the other learning across government. So the publication a couple of weeks ago about the new curriculum in Campus for Government Skills. Again, virtual at the moment, or may become physical, so may have physical elements to it in due course. So new government Campus for Government Skills will be introduced progressively by central government over the coming years. And the government's Projects Academy will be, if you like, a faculty on that campus. We will be part of it. And that means that we have a much better opportunity to link up with the other people on the campus. The National Leadership Centre, for example, I think it will help us strengthen links with the NHS Leadership Academy and learning organisations, not just in the central civil service, but also across the wider public sector. And for us, I think that really gives us an opportunity to build links across different parts of the public sector and help share and develop learning and work together in order to improve our understanding of these things. So very exciting time coming ahead. And I mentioned it before, but the other thing we are really focusing on at the moment are improving our tools, guidance and support. So I've talked about the principles for project success, that's out there. I've talked about the IPA mandate, that's just been published. And we also have the government functional standard for project delivery, which was introduced in 2018 and which is also out there. All of these things are on the IPA website. But equally, we're going to be looking again at some of these things and then developing. So the big thing that's coming up is the new government project delivery framework, which will set out not just the standards, but how we expect projects to be done through their life cycle in government, from, if you like, initiation through to delivery. And that's in preparation now. We're planning to launch and then build from that towards it. We will be talking about it at the Project Delivery Conference. And that will provide the framework for everything else. It will provide the kind of spine for all the other things that we do in the IPA. And that will be followed by a range of other things as well. So in particular, we're producing a wide range of other guidance because there's quite a lot of gaps. There are quite a few things we really want to improve in terms of delivery. So new guidance on opportunity framing right at the start of your project, on front-end loading, getting your project delivered right, with associated with a new approach to the project initiation route map. We're refreshing that. New guidance and tools on cost estimation and benchmarking. And alongside that, and as part of that, once we've done all those things, we will be coming back to the government functional standard and updating it because it's been out a few years and there are some things we want to develop in it. But also we'll be adding a new assessment tool for the standard, which will help organisations benchmark themselves against the standard. And alongside that, we have guidance for SROs, again, available on our website. We want to update that. We will be updating the Project Delivery Capability Framework once we've introduced the new Government's Academy and the Accreditation Framework and the new curriculum. And that is probably just the start. So a lot going on. a lot of stuff coming out, but the aim of this is not to create lots of bureaucracy and kind of slavish documents, but to produce really useful, easy to use tools and guidance that are available for everybody. And that is very much our aim, with the aim of helping us completely, continue to improve how we do project delivery across government. Just going back to where I started, I hope that's given you a taste of some of the things we're doing, but I do want to go back to the beginning. Project delivery really matters. It's never been more important. I've never known a time where project delivery skills have been so much in demand. And that's a fantastic opportunity that we have looking forward. So, be part of the future. We have great opportunities ahead of us. And as part of that, if you want to know a bit more, then the Government Project Delivery Conference will be running 2 dates. It will be online, 17th and the 24th of March. And that's an opportunity for people to learn more. So if you'd like to register for that, registration is open and the link is there. Thank you. Jo, any questions?
That's fantastic. Thank you, Fiona. That was a really useful insight into what's happening in the profession, and an awful lot that's happening at the moment, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Massive transformation for the profession itself. That's wonderful to see. We do have quite a few questions, and I think there's a theme there around, and how does this then impact on the NHS, and how do we get connected in with that? I think that's one of the important things that we want to see. There's about 10,000 people working in project delivery in the NHS, delivering the government's mandate and key public services. And what is it that you would like to see the NHS putting in place to support that development of professional capacity and capability?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, yes, I mean, we absolutely know that I can count 14,000 people in central government because they're kind of on the set of statistics. I have no knowledge, of how many other folk there are out there, but we want to be open and accessible to as wide a range of people as possible, because that's part of the IPA's remit. And really keen. I think firstly, let's keep building these links, and sharing what we know, sharing what we learn. Sometimes it's important to tailor and to make sure that things are adapted for use in a certain environment. And I know you've done that exactly for the NHS Capability Framework, for example. But equally, if there's something that we can all use together, then let's just use it. Rather than reinventing the wheel. So really keen. I mean, we are trying to make sure that what we produce is not just central government focused, that it is useful across a wide range of things. Because it's the IPA, we tend to have a particular focus on major projects. But I'm also the IPA's conscious, and I sit there saying, no, it's also got to work for smaller ones as well. So we're trying to really provide leadership, do what we can with the 200 people we've got. But at the same time, we will need to work with you to kind of take that and then make it real and then use it. So I think firstly, the links, the connectivity, making sure we're all working together on these things. I think, we are always really keen to hear from people across the public sector about what you need. And I'd be really interested to know. What would be helpful. We did some work in the autumn to try and understand that as part of Project Speed. We talked to a lot of local government, we talked to a whole range of organisations in the NHS, indeed right across government. And a lot of what you see there came out of those discussions, opening access to training, making it clearer, making the profession valued, and then, clear tools and things to use. But if there are other things, let us know. We're all ears.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting one, because when we looked at the sort of the request for Project Speed, we really wanted to be able to provide the information in terms of who we've got and where they are and what skills they've got. And the difficulty that we've had in the NHS is that we don't have the equivalent of the IPA in the NHS. There is no function that's responsible for the project workforce, and this is something we've been looking to try and resolve and try and find a sort of a host and a sponsor for it, so that we've got that coordination in place. So that's, and again, having the government mandate published is a fantastic motivator around this, because there hasn't been a mandate around the profession before, and therefore with all of the other priorities on the books, people said, you know, if we don't have to do it, we're not going to do it. So I think it's looking then about, you know, communicating that to the kind of the senior people in the sector to say, and here's the expectation, you know, this is what we need you to do about this, to help us get that coordinated function, you know, sort of prioritised amongst all the other priorities.
Couldn't agree more. I think it is, you know, when I started out in project delivery, it was really hard to get it recognised, let alone valued. I think we're in a different place now. So there's an opportunity, but more to do. And I think we all know that. But yeah, we have some fantastic opportunities. I think we're really starting to get this on the map. And now I think we can, you know, collectively work together to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a bit of catching up to do in the NHS. We've been sort of working on it in the continuing in the background.
Sorry. Somebody decided unusually to ring me. Can't shut it up. I apologise profusely.
Hello, we're not available now. Please leave your name and...
That's one of the joys of working from home, isn't it? If it's not sort of, you know, cats and dogs and kids. So just while Fiona gets sorted out, have we lost her connection? Ah, that's okay. Hi, Fiona, can you hear us again?
Many apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's great.
Oh, you couldn't make that up, could you?
At this point, between cats and dogs and kids and, you know, delivery people, it's the norm now.
Absolutely. Just to prove this is definitely a live show, folks.
Yes.
Apologies.
We didn't rehearse this bit. But no, this is just the reality of life as it is now, isn't it?
It is.
But, you know, we get to have some fun with it all. So we're just talking then about the profession. We have got some a real good set of questions coming up, and I think what's really important for us is in terms of the festival and what we're launching at the festival. It will be the first capability framework for the NHS. It's built on the government one. It was just adapted so that it fit within the architecture of the NHS. But it's a starting point. It's the first stab. It's about getting something out there. And I think what would be great is if you're looking at the government one, and we would look to then say, well, actually, what's the next evolution of it, and build it together so that it connects up.
Absolutely. Yes. And for example, our capability framework is also slightly, of course, it's attuned to government, but it's also a bit different. We use the APM competencies, but it was an earlier version. Then they updated theirs. We're now having a conversation with, could we just maybe align the next one? You know, so I think, yes, we have these opportunities. So let's do that. That would be great.
That's wonderful. So if I go to questions from attendees now. So first question is, will the Government Project Academy be available and accessible to NHS staff?
Yes, it will. Okay. We have been really clear in terms of, you know, the kind of setup of all of this. Now, the government learning, essentially in terms of what we'll be doing, so we'll move the big leadership programs under it. They're already accessible to NHS staff. Obviously, you know, you need to meet certain criteria. You need to be leading a really big project in order to attend PLP or, you know, major project for MPLA, so on and so forth. But they are open to NHS staff, and our only, you know, problem at the moment is capacity, which we're working to fix. But more generally, once we've got the rest of the curriculum sorted out, there will be a whole range of programs available through. Some of those will be used through the government learning contracts but they are potentially usable by others. But some of them will also just be, they will be commonly accessible courses elsewhere, because we're trying not to kind of do lots of bespokery. We're trying to use things that are already out there, just make it a lot clearer what's expected over time. So, one way or another, absolutely, they will be available. And I'm really determined that this is, genuinely a government projects academy, not just a central government or civil service projects academy. I'm really clear that we want this to be open to all, and that's very much the ambition. So.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. So a question a little bit on the theme. How does the IPA ensure that the arm's length bodies and the NHS have the capacity and competence needed to deliver projects?
Oh, that is really hard. I mean, it's quite hard when there's 200 of you. And quite a lot of them are doing infrastructure and financing things. I've got a team of about just under 30. So we can't do it, there are limits to what we can do centrally in terms of making sure there is the capacity. We can say it's important, we can provide the tools and support, we can set out the frameworks, and we can work with organisations to help build it. But ultimately, a lot of the building, if you like, the investment in skills can only be done in those organisations. But we are working on that. So some of the work we did in the autumn, we looked at what were the things that really helped build capacity and capability in project delivery. And what became clear was that in any organisation, whether it was local government or the NHS or arm's length bodies, central government, having two things. One is a clear pipeline, so not just stop-start investment, but a clear pipeline of investment. And then secondly, having a strong, clear sort of central point, a portfolio function with somebody who cared about professional capability as part of that. They were the key factors, if you like. That was the secret sauce to building capability. And then you start to get things like, you need investment. But when you have that, people can see the need for investment because they can see the pipeline and you have somebody counting for it. So gradually, those in whatever organisation we looked at, where they'd done that, and there's some brilliant examples in local government, by the way, then that was successful. So I think it is all about understanding what are the key factors in building capability and then helping seed and support that in the organisations where that needs to be true.
Excellent. No, that's great. Thank you. So we have a question around the assurance review processes, and particularly in response to the challenging timescales around the pandemic. With the pace of delivery creating a lot of instances of government or governance having to catch up retrospectively, what's your kind of view on the role of the IPA around assurance of projects in these times?
So the IPA sets the overall framework for assurance in terms of what are generally called IPA reviews or gateway reviews, and we're just revamping that actually. And that is, the framework is a requirement for certain levels of projects. So major projects in the government major projects portfolio, they have to do this. And they won't proceed through go. They won't proceed through different stage gates unless they have been assured to those standards. So that's very much a requirement. We obviously hope that while we don't then kind of it's not our job to enforce it outside the government major projects portfolio when there are lots of smaller projects, but equally there is good practice there that we would want to promote. So the whole idea of assurance reviews before you come up to a key decision point is a really well established principle, and is something that can be done in a range of ways. And for example, in defence or in a number of other departments actually where they have a lot of projects, they obviously use the IPA structure and the IPA reviews for the big projects, but they have a sort of similar approach for smaller projects as well, tailored to those, but using the same principles. So really big fan of making sure you have clear assurance points, it's good practice in project delivery, that are applied at key points before you take key decisions. And then clearly you need to tailor how you do that to the size of the project. But you know, the principles are clear, and I think it's one of the things, for example, in the project delivery framework, we'll be making that clearer. What's expected at each point? Where does assurance come in? And that again should be adaptable, not just to big things, but also to a range of projects.
The tricky thing I think people are struggling with is where we have a lot of uncertainty. So, you know, in the VUCA world, how do you provide that kind of, you know, definitive information about, you know, requirements or benefits or outcomes when we don't know what some of those things are? And actually we would have to, you know, experiment and test and build and grow in order to get to that point. How does that sort of fit with the 5-stage gates?
Great question. And equally, I mean, it also applies to, for example, digital agile delivery as well. And we have the same thing. So firstly, the 5-stage gates obviously works for certain projects, not all, but there are, you can apply very similar things to digital and agile projects, whereby you have, you know, before key decision points or key sprints or whatever it is, you have you know, assurance built in at the right point. Or for truly agile projects, what we do is review them on an annual basis to make sure that they're kind of hitting the various times. And I think you have to recognise, if you're a reviewer, that, you know, in a VUCA environment, in certain places, not everything will be known, and you have to adapt for that. But then you need to make sure that the delivery and the decision making is managing risk accordingly. I think one of the things, the IPA has been doing a lot of assurance on, shall we say, very, very agile delivery over the last year, because it was brought in to assure, we've actually been assuring most of the kind of big COVID projects, as well as the Brexit projects, which were of course pretty uncertain for quite a long time. But particularly the experience of assuring, you know, the vaccines work, test and trace, you know, the furlough scheme, a whole range of things. We were brought in, and really I think that has taught us a lot about how you assure in an uncertain environment. And it is a question of adaptation, but you know, the kind of the principles around assurance are always, you know, tailor, really think about what you're trying to achieve, and then make sure what you've done is kind of tailored accordingly, rather than apply something slavishly that isn't going to fit.
Absolutely. And actually on that theme, and we're running a little bit short of time, we do have some more questions which we might have to follow up with you afterwards, if that's okay. But there is a question actually about how do we bring digital delivery and project delivery closer together, because we've got obviously, you know, government digital service, we've got the IPA, we've got different standards, different professions, and yet most programs and projects now are a combination of both, aren't they?
Absolutely. Even in a big infrastructure project, you'd be surprised how much is digital now. So I mean, I think, you know, I think the understanding of how those things fit together is improving, and whereas I think, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago it was almost open warfare, I think we're in a much better place now. And indeed the project delivery, you know, capability framework is aligned to the digital capability framework in places. So we, you know, we absolutely recognise that. Of course, not all digital delivery is projects, and vice versa. So we are dealing with a bit of a Venn diagram. But I think, you know, it's back to what's the outcome, what's the vehicle. So what are the appropriate disciplines to apply in this circumstance? And project delivery needs to be very clear that there are different modes of delivery, and there isn't one size fits all. But equally, and adapt its disciplines accordingly. And I think we're getting better at that, probably more to do. Equally, I think in digital delivery, there needs to be a recognition that, you know, if it's big and ugly and you are going to be investing quite a lot, then, you know, at some point you really are going to have to put some proper investment and project delivery disciplines around it, because otherwise, apart from anything, you're not going to get the money. So all of these things, I think it is an incentive. So we are, I think, getting better at that. But there's a new head of government digital delivery coming in, and you know, I think the relationship between the functions will be really key going forward. We're certainly committed to building bridges together on that.
Okay, thank you. Fantastic. I'm afraid we really are out of time. I'm sorry we haven't got to everybody's questions. We will follow up on them, I promise you. But no, that was really, really useful insights there. Thank you so much, Fiona. Do appreciate your coming along and telling us all about what's going on. And I think we have a very supportive and engaged audience, and we're all very much, on the journey and want to be part of it, and we'll come together to make this happen. We're all passionate about the services that we deliver and the people we serve. So, what we can do to be better at that is for everybody's gain. So thank you very much. We look forward to kind of catching up and following up on some of those things following this. And so for everybody else, in terms of thank you for joining us this morning, the next session is all about understanding applied neuroscience and the impact on project success with Carol Osterweil. So if you're coming along to that, don't forget to get your gain points at the end of this session. There's a code that will pop up in a moment. Refill your cups, stretch your legs, and we will see you again shortly. Thank you, everybody.